In 1903, four friends in Milwaukee dreamed of building a bicycle with an engine. They worked in a small wooden shed that smelled of oil and hope. The first machine barely worked, but it moved, and that movement changed history. From that day, Harley-Davidson became more than a motorcycle. It became a symbol of American freedom on the open road. Let's go over the idioms for today's story. Off the ground. Start well and show clear progress beyond the first steps. Start from scratch. Begin with nothing and build everything piece by piece. Hands-on experience. Learn by doing real tasks and fixing real problems. Think outside the box. Use new creative ideas instead of the usual way. The workshop dream. In the early spring of 1903, four young men worked in a small wooden shed behind the Davidson family home in Milwaukee. They were trying to get a daring idea off the ground, a motor-powered bicycle that could climb hills on its own. The air smelled of oil and sawdust as William Harley sketched engine parts on pieces of wood. Few neighbors believed anything useful would come from all that noise, but curiosity grew with every test ride. Their challenge was enormous. They had to start from scratch in an era when roads were poor, funding was scarce, and patents belonged mostly to European inventors. Using borrowed tools and recycled metal, they built each part by hand. Nights stretched past midnight as they hammered frames and filed pistons until the shed glowed orange with lamplight. When the first prototype sputtered to life, it rolled only a few meters, but it proved a dream could move under its own power. What set them apart was hands-on experience. William Harley had studied drafting at the local university, while Arthur Davidson learned precision work from a pattern shop. Their combined skills formed a bridge between design and reality. They tested every failure as data, not disaster, keeping detailed notes that would later guide industrial-scale production. The rhythm of their tools echoed through the quiet neighborhood like a heartbeat of invention. Instead of copying European blueprints, the team tried to think outside the box. They designed larger engines for American roads, wider seats for comfort, and stronger frames to survive rough terrain. By summer's end, their second prototype could climb hills and travel miles without rest. The founders didn't yet realize it, but they had created more than a machine. They had forged the first spark of a brand that would soon symbolize endurance and freedom. Let's go over the idioms for today's story. Ahead of the curve. Move faster than others and spot new trends early. Raise the bar. Set higher goals, so quality and effort must improve. Hit the ground running. Start quickly and work well with little warm-up. Make a name for itself. Become known and respected for good results. Rising demand. By 1910, Harley-Davidson had moved from its wooden shed into a solid brick factory. The small dream had grown into a structured business that was already ahead of the curve in American manufacturing. The new building echoed with the steady rhythm of engines being tested. Riders from across the Midwest came to Milwaukee to see the machines everyone was talking about. They weren't simply buying transportation, they were buying trust in a name that promised strength and adventure. As competitors appeared, Harley-Davidson tried to raise the bar in every possible way. They improved engines from 1 cylinder to 2, offering more power for long-distance travel. Mechanics introduced chain drives instead of belts, allowing smoother performance. The company even created training manuals for dealers to ensure every motorcycle met the same standard. Customers could sense the difference. Harley's reputation became a quiet benchmark for quality at a time when reliability meant survival on rough American roads. With demand increasing, the founders needed people who could hit the ground running. New employees came from farms, rail yards, and repair shops, bringing practical knowledge and unstoppable energy. The factory floor became a place of noise and pride, steam hammers pounding, belts spinning, and foremen calling out over the clatter. It wasn't just a workplace, it was a community bound by mechanical rhythm and ambition. The team worked with purpose, believing that every machine leaving the factory carried their shared identity. By the end of the decade, Harley-Davidson had begun to make a name for itself far beyond Wisconsin. Their motorcycles won endurance races, broke speed records, and were adopted by police departments nationwide. For a young America still defining its industrial strength, Harley represented confidence on wheels. The brand's iconic bar and shield logo started appearing everywhere, from newspaper ads to the front of machines roaring down open highways. The company wasn't just selling motorcycles anymore. It was selling motion, reliability, and pride. Let's go over the idioms for today's story. Get off the ground. Launch and reach a stable start that keeps going. Start from scratch. Create it from zero without using ready-made parts. Hands-on experience. Practical learning that builds skills you can use. Expanding the factory. By the early 1910s, the Harley-Davidson factory had transformed from a small workshop into one of the largest motorcycle plants in the world. New assembly lines, powered by belts and steam, helped the company continually get off the ground. New innovations each year. Engineers tested prototypes daily, adjusting valves, frames, and carburetors, while managers refined systems to keep production moving smoothly. The Milwaukee skyline shimmered with progress, and workers proudly wore overalls stamped with the Harley-Davidson logo. Even as profits climbed, the founders remembered what it meant to start from scratch. They never forgot the long nights spent in that wooden shed or the borrowed tools that launched their dream. This humility shaped the company's culture. Workers addressed the founders by first name, and the Davison brothers often walked the factory floor to shake hands and check on quality personally. That connection between leadership and labor created loyalty stronger than any contract. The company valued hands-on experience over formal titles. Many of the top managers had once worked as mechanics or assembly line technicians. Their understanding of the machines allowed faster problem-solving and deeper respect between teams. New ideas came from anyone who had something to improve, whether it was a bolt design or a new paint process. The company grew not only in size, but also in spirit. To stay competitive, Harley-Davidson continued to think outside the box. They experimented with sidecars, new colors, and even advertising campaigns showing real riders exploring America's back roads. Their message was clear. Harley wasn't just a vehicle, it was a lifestyle. By 1914, they were producing thousands of motorcycles a year and exporting them to over 60 countries. Harley-Davidson had become a global ambassador for American innovation, proving that a company born from modest beginnings could set the pace for an entire industry. Let's go over the idioms for today's story. Ahead of the curve. Lead the way before most people catch up. Raise the bar. Increase standards so the next work is better. Hit the ground running. Be productive from day one with strong focus. A brand on the move. By the mid-1920s, Harley-Davidson was widely recognized as the company that stayed ahead of the curve. It wasn't just producing motorcycles, it was shaping a culture of independence and mechanical pride. Their machines appeared in parades, motion pictures, and endurance competitions. Crowds gathered along dirt tracks to watch racers fly by on bikes that symbolized the power of modern engineering. Each roar of the engine reinforced Harley's reputation for performance, reliability, and unmistakable sound. The leadership refused to rest on success. They wanted to raise the bar by turning every new model into a technical milestone. Engineers introduced the V-twin engine, a design that gave Harley bikes their distinctive pulse and deeper tone. Riders noticed instantly. The improved suspension and braking systems offered smoother control, making long-distance travel possible for the first time. These breakthroughs weren't accidents. They were results of patient testing and an endless desire to outdo yesterday's results. Dealers across the country were trained to hit the ground running whenever a new model launched. They organized road shows, racing events, and maintenance demonstrations to attract customers. Rural towns welcomed the excitement, while city showrooms filled with curious onlookers. Riders from all backgrounds, police officers, farmers, delivery men, even early female motorcyclists, came to see what Harley had created. In those gatherings, Harley-Davidson wasn't just selling products. It was building community. All that effort helped the company make a name for itself far beyond the United States. Export sales reached Europe, South America, and Asia, where the motorcycles were prized for endurance in rough terrain. International riders admired the sense of strength and freedom that came with owning one. By the late 1920s, the Harley-Davidson name had become synonymous with motion itself, a symbol of speed, reliability, and the American dream carried forward on two wheels. Let's go over the idioms for today's story. Word of mouth. People share good experiences, and their friends try it. Go the extra mile. Do more than expected to make customers happy. Build from the ground up. Design and make the whole thing yourself. Brand loyalty. Customers return often because they trust your brand. Building a community. By the late 1920s, Harley-Davidson had grown far beyond a manufacturing company. It had become a household name carried by stories and conversations. Its fame spread not through advertising, but through word of mouth. Riders who crossed states or delivered mail on Harley bikes told others how dependable and thrilling the machines were. Each shared story became living proof that Harley was more than a product. It was an experience that brought people together. To keep that reputation strong, Harley learned to go the extra mile for its customers. The company opened training schools for mechanics and encouraged dealers to treat buyers like family. Factory tours allowed visitors to meet the people behind the machines, reinforcing trust in the brand. Customer service wasn't just a department, it was a philosophy. Riders who broke down hundreds of miles from home often found help waiting from fellow Harley owners. That spirit of generosity defined the community. The company also continued to build from the ground up, expanding its dealer network across North America and beyond. New dealerships opened in small towns, often becoming community hubs where locals gathered to talk about road trips, races, and repair tips. These shops displayed photographs of customers, creating a personal connection that few competitors could match. Through shared values of craftsmanship and freedom, Harley's community became its strongest advertisement. Over time, Harley-Davidson achieved extraordinary brand loyalty. Riders tattooed the logo on their arms, wore jackets with the iconic shield, and formed clubs dedicated to the brand spirit. The most famous of these, the Harley Owners Group, would emerge decades later as a global brotherhood of enthusiasts. But its roots were already growing in the 1920s, when riders realized that owning a Harley wasn't just transportation, it was a declaration of belonging to something larger than themselves. Let's go over the idioms for today's story. Weather the storm. Stay steady during hard times until things improve. Back to the drawing board. Stop, rethink the plan, and try a better way. Level playing field. Fair rules so everyone has the same chance. Turn things around. Change a bad situation into a good one with action. Surviving the Great Depression. When the Great Depression hit in 1929, factories across America went silent. Harley-Davidson, like every business, had to weather the storm. Orders dropped overnight, and even loyal customers could no longer afford new motorcycles. Yet inside the Milwaukee factory, the sound of hammers and engines never fully stopped. Management chose not to panic. Instead, they looked for creative ways to survive, cutting costs carefully, preserving jobs where possible, and holding firm to their belief that quality would outlast crisis. Despite their best efforts, some projects failed. When new models didn't sell, engineers went back to the drawing board. They simplified designs, producing smaller, affordable bikes for police departments, mail carriers, and delivery services. These steady contracts became lifelines, keeping workers employed and the production lines moving. The company learned valuable lessons about efficiency and resilience. Harley's ability to adapt while maintaining standards became an inspiration to other American manufacturers struggling to survive. The marketplace grew fierce. Dozens of motorcycle brands disappeared during those hard years, but Harley insisted on a level playing field. They refused to copy foreign designs or engage in price wars that would destroy profits. Instead, they focused on craftsmanship, service, and reliability, the values that had built their reputation. Customers noticed. Many returned when times improved, remembering that Harley had stood by its workers and its word. By the mid-1930s, the company had managed to turn things around. Slowly, sales improved as recovery began. Harley introduced new models with stronger engines and sleeker designs. The company even started exporting again, reminding the world that American ingenuity could endure the hardest tests. Out of the Depression, Harley emerged leaner, wiser, and more determined. A brand that had proven that loyalty and persistence could overcome even the darkest economic storm. A brand at war. When World War II began in 1939, Harley-Davidson was called upon once again to build from the ground up a new kind of machine. Civilian production stopped almost completely as the company shifted its entire focus to serving the U.S. military. Engineers worked around the clock designing the WLA model, an all-terrain motorcycle strong enough to survive deserts, jungles, and battlefields. Within months, the quiet Milwaukee factory became a center of military innovation, producing tens of thousands of bikes for American and Allied forces. Workers were determined to go the extra mile for the soldiers depending on their machines. Many volunteered for long shifts, while others sent letters and small care packages to the troops overseas. The company even printed technical manuals in multiple languages so that Allied mechanics could repair the bikes in the field. Each shipment carried pride, not just steel. Every motorcycle leaving the factory symbolized teamwork, sacrifice, and the hope of returning peace. The reputation of Harley-Davidson spread quickly through word of mouth among soldiers. Reports from Europe and North Africa told of bikes that started in freezing rain, crossed rivers, and endured gunfire. To many young men, the Harley sound became the sound of freedom itself, a mechanical heartbeat that reminded them of home. After the war, those stories followed them back to America, carrying deep emotional connections to the brand. When peace finally came in 1945, Harley-Davidson found itself with an army of loyal customers, veterans whose brand loyalty was unshakable. They had trusted those bikes in battle and now wanted them in civilian life. These returning soldiers formed motorcycle clubs, held reunions, and helped redefine Harley's image. The motorcycle became not just a vehicle, but a symbol of courage, independence, and unity, a legacy born from war and carried proudly into peacetime. Facing new rivals. When peace returned, the world began to rebuild, and so did competition. By the late 1940s, British and European manufacturers entered the U.S. market with smaller, cheaper motorcycles that appealed to young riders. Harley-Davidson suddenly had to weather the storm once again. Their large, heavy machines no longer fit the new idea of speed and style. For the first time in decades, America's motorcycle leader faced the risk of being left behind. Inside the company, engineers went back to the drawing board. They began redesigning engines to make them lighter and more efficient. In 1948, Harley introduced the panhead engine, which brought improved power and smoother performance. Advertisements highlighted not just engineering, but emotion, freedom, road trips, and the romance of open highways. Harley's leaders realized that they were selling not only machines, but dreams. The real challenge was not mechanical. It was cultural. To compete fairly against imported brands, Harley fought for a level playing field. They appealed to patriotism, reminding Americans that their motorcycles were still built in Milwaukee by American workers. Dealers displayed flags, photos of soldiers, and slogans like "Buy American, Ride American." The company also deepened its relationship with police departments and government agencies, ensuring contracts that provided financial stability during turbulent times. Through these efforts, Harley-Davidson eventually turned things around. Sales climbed again as the brand found new ways to connect emotionally with customers. The company's image transformed from a post-war manufacturer into a symbol of rugged individuality. Riders who valued strength over fashion proudly chose Harley, making the motorcycle a cultural icon. The struggle of the 1940s and early 1950s taught Harley an important lesson. It wasn't just competing for market share, it was fighting for identity. Thanks for watching English Through Stories. Remember, the best way to improve is by listening again and again. Each time, you'll notice more details and the words will start to feel natural. If you found this helpful, give it a like and share it with someone learning English. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next story. Keep practicing, keep listening, and your fluency will grow step by step. See you in the next video.